Welcome to First Things First. Welcome to 2018. I'm Jenna Wolf. That's the Hall of Famer Chris Carter. And that is Nick Wright. Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New Year, everybody. Glad to be here.
It was a great 2017 for us, and we're really looking forward to 2018.
Here's my little confession. At my last job, we spent like a month before the new year talking about New Year's resolutions. And I did not say the word resolution once this year, and I think it's because I'm so happy with you guys and where I am.
Jenna,
I don't want to change anything. I want to just do it even better than we did it last year.
Maybe change this concoction you
drink. This bone broth is fantastic. Anyway, great program, great weekend of football. Glad you guys are in a good place.
Yes. Yes, let's do it. Let's do it big in 18.
All right, I'm on board with that. All right, after weeks of speculating, calculating, deliberating, now you can just sit back and let me say words to you as fact. Fact, the Falcons beat the Panthers 22-10. Fact, a lot of that had to do with the way Cam Newton played. Fact, it didn't affect what he wore in the postgame press conference. Had Carolina won yesterday, it would have netted them a home playoff game, but Cam Newton completed just 14 of 34 passes for 180 yards and 3 picks. Here he is after the game.
This is a hostile environment today, and in the way it's looking, we're going to have a lot of hostile environments that we have to go into. So, like I say, it's all about contested catches and the physicality that we must bring, and that approach. And, the accuracy is something that needs to be in place as well. So I just can't overlook myself because there was some errant throws that I feel like I got to be better at, and I will be better at.
Sounds pretty confident. I don't know if it's possible to just say the words and make it happen, but CC, how worried should the Panthers be about Cam Newton?
You should be concerned. Coming into the season, we knew Cam had an off-season surgery, so we knew that he missed a lot of training camp, so he might be a little bit slow starting the season. We gave him that. We know that they have very good special teams. We know that they have a very good defense, but how good can the team be? Well, it's really up to Cam Newton. Cam Newton's been very inconsistent. We've talked about it on this show, but the truth of the matter, how inconsistent has he been? He really hadn't been that inconsistent throughout his career. He just had that outlier of a season in 2015 where he was the MVP, and now we just upped our standards. Since Cam came into the league in 2015, it's alarming. The league average quarterback rating is 87.3. Cam, 85.3. So Cam is under what the league average is, but because of his size, his personality, and the dynamic year he had in 2015, we have higher expectations for Cam, but I think this is the Cam that we will see throughout his career. Average quarterback rating, 85 or so. He'll jump up and have a few games over 100. He's one of the few players that's had over 100 and a number of games where he was very, very poor. So typically we don't see that type of talent have that type of inconsistency playing quarterback.
But wait, yesterday was a little different than just
Yesterday was the worst game of his career.
Okay.
I mean, here's the thing, and this is why I don't want to underreact, but I also want to overreact to yesterday. Yesterday was the single worst game of Cam Newton's career. Not just because it was a big game, a game where they went into it knowing in order to have any shot at a home playoff game, they had to win. Things fell perfectly for them to where they wouldn't have only had a home playoff game. They would have jumped all the way to the 3 line, which, if you are shaky on Philly, that could have been a home playoff game in round 1. And if they get there, a home playoff game in round 3. There was a lot to be gained for Carolina yesterday.
Yes.
And Cam was terrible. Again, not just terrible because of the settings, terrible in any setting. It was the worst passer rating of his career. There's only been one game in his career where he's thrown more interceptions. Take out the one drive at the end of the first half that made me fire off a little tweet to Chris Carter. Take out that one drive. He was 7 of 27. That's like a bad shooting night in the NBA. 114 yards, 0 touchdowns, 3 picks. There is no excusing Cam's game yesterday. I'm not as, I don't want to say panicked, I'm not as concerned as Cece is because while I understand Cam's passer rating is essentially the league average since he came into the league, there's always been additional math to do with Cam Newton, which is the running stuff. And to call it like I just did the running stuff is not paying it justice. He leads the NFL in rushing touchdowns, not by quarterbacks, by anybody, since he came into the league. Now, none of it matters if he's as bad as he was yesterday. Yesterday, he was missing guys high, missing guys low. The Falcons weren't taking over that game. The Falcons...
They were not playing against a great defense, Jenna, and it wasn't just yesterday. He's had 8 games where his passer rating was under 70. So it wasn't just yesterday. There's only 16 games. Half the games he's had a passing rating of under 70. Now, I don't care if he rushes for 2,000 yards. When he throws the football, Cam Newton is average to below average. And we shouldn't accept that based on his ability. He has a big-time arm. He's played in this league 7 years. Like, this is a team that right now their quarterback is holding them back from being great.
Right, and it wasn't just some errant throws. I mean, there were times in that game where it looked like he and Greg Olsen had completely different plays called, right? Didn't it look like there were issues with it seemed like the whole entire rhythm of the offense?
Absolutely, and for certain quarterbacks, we blame that on the wide receiver. For certain quarterbacks, we blame that on the quarterback. In reality, it's usually a combination.
Well, I blame it on who I think is the smarter player. And when you saw them miscommunicating, Cam tried to say something to Olsen, and Olsen walked away from him because he didn't agree with what Cam said. You could see that Olsen was like, I was right, and Cam was trying to make some excuse or adjustment.
Here's my biggest concern with Cam Newton. It's not about accuracy. It's not about fundamentals. It's that at this point in his career, he should be past this. But you know what he reminds me of when I watch him? I'll personalize it. Reminds me of when I watched my son play basketball his junior year of high school. And if he made his first 3 shots, he was going to have a monster game. A monster game. If he missed his first 3 shots, he was going to be in his feelings. He was going to be thinking about it. And that is what you see of immature athletes often. You see it in high school players all the time, that how they play in the first 5 minutes of the game sets the tone for the rest of the game. That can't happen with a 6-year NFL veteran as it is happening with Cam Newton. Like, do you think that's an unfair criticism that if Cam starts off slow...
I think it's unfair to DeMonze for you to compare him because in all reality, Cam is the best athlete on the field. So even if he didn't make his first 2 or 3 shots, there's other ways in basketball you can affect the game. You can rebound. You can play defense. And if he was the best player on the court, we would not expect that from DeMonze. So, DeMonze, listen, bro. All right?
A lot of airtime.
Yeah, bro. Don't be getting compared to Cam. Okay. Cam is the best athlete. Let's stop making excuses. Let's make Cam perform to a higher level. Like, why don't we do that? We do it with Matty Ice. Oh, the 2016 season was an outlier. Well, let me tell you, it was an outlier. The 2015 season for Cam Newton. The rest of his other 6 seasons, he has been average to below average based on other NFL quarterbacks.
So all that being said, both these teams are in the postseason and have to continue to play some football. And for Carolina and Cam Newton, they have to go against a Saints team, which they've already lost to 2 times before. So let's talk about these 2 teams. Can either of them put together a decent playoff run based on what you saw yesterday?
Absolutely. Yes, both of them can. Because also, look at the number 1 and 2 seeds. You can't talk about playoffs until you talk about they're playing with injured quarterbacks. Now, which one of those guys do you have in Philadelphia? Nick Foles, do you have more confidence in him? Or Jenna, in your boy Case in Minnesota? Because Minnesota has a better football team. Now, can they lose? Yes, but I have more confidence in that team. Can New Orleans put it together with their running attack, their defense being able to get after the quarterback, Marshawn Lattimore back at corner? Yes, they can make a run. And Cam, because he's on a good football team that is very physical. And the defense is going to have them in every game. So both of these teams,
do you think Atlanta can make a run? I know you were talking about the other teams that aren't the byes.
I don't like the first-round matchup. No, I don't think they can, because I don't think they can be consistent enough scoring.
And they're playing the Rams in the first round.
The Rams, I think, is the worst matchup for them. Now, they're going to get great weather in Los Angeles, so they'll be able to throw the football, but they've just been inconsistent scoring points, and I don't believe they'll be able to keep up with the Rams.
I don't believe in the Falcons. I understand they won yesterday. I watched the Falcons very closely each of the last 2 weeks. These were 2 games that they knew only need to win 1 to get in. Last week, they were awful, I thought, against New Orleans. I thought Atlanta in their biggest game of the year was awful. And this week, it took Cam's again, worst game of his career, for them to put this game away. This was a 6-point game forever. Atlanta dominated the first half, and it was 7-7 at the half. So in your two biggest games of the year, when you're playing a Saints team and then most notably a Panthers team that didn't play well, and you can't dominate the game, I don't believe in it. As far as Carolina, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think it's right to think in a playoff caliber game that teams are going to dominate. When you're very familiar with another team, it's hard to get. Now, I like Steve Sarkisian. His game plan for the Falcons, how to attack Carolina's defense, I thought was very good, where they got Freeman on the edge. They got him touches. That was I think that as far as it being a blowout, I think those types of things are very, very rare that we're going to see them in a divisional game.
And while the Patriots didn't play their best game, they did play a game, enough of a game, to beat the Jets 26-6. Pretty pedestrian game for Tom Brady, 18-37 for 190 yards and 2 touchdowns. But with the win, the AFC playoffs will once again run through New England as the Pats locked up the #1 seed. Here is Tom Brady discussing his season.
It was a great way to end the year. You know, we started 2-2, and 13-3 is pretty good, and to get the #1 seed. So our biggest games are ahead of us, and hopefully the fans enjoy that and they come out ready to go whenever we play.
Good to have 13 wins. It's not easy, but these guys accomplished it, and so look forward to starting the second season. We'll see how that goes.
Wow, he's so excited. He's so excited about it, too. All right, Nick, so you're the king of Vegas here. Vegas still thinks the Patriots are the team to win it all. You buying New England as Super Bowl favorites?
I'm not buying them as Super Bowl favorites, but man, oh man, this team is vexing. I watch this team as closely as I watch any team in the league. And the last 2 months, I felt like almost every game, they haven't played that well. And almost every game, not only have they covered the spread, they've won by multiple scores. It ends up being. I watched that game yesterday. It's 26-6, and Brady has 2 touchdowns, no picks. And I was like, Brady didn't play very well.
Gronk never caught a ball.
Gronk had a $2 million incentive on the line if he had a big game, and they did a very interesting thing, which is never throw him a single pass the entire game. But that's separate. I don't think they're the best team in the league. I don't think they're the best team in the AFC. And I think their quarterback is coming off the worst month that he's had in years. But they're 13-3 again. They won't have to play a road playoff game again. It's the 7th straight year they've had a bye, which is remarkable. So no, I don't think they're the favorites. I can't make a compelling case as to why 13-3 hasn't impressed me, other than I've watched the games and they didn't look overwhelming to me, especially these last 5-6 games, CC.
Well, the NFL this season, it's not about taking pictures. It's not about glamour shots. It's about who do you have the most trust in. And you have more trust, if you've been watching the NFL, with New England than any other team. For the last 12 weeks, what are they? They're 11-1. Why couldn't you? To me, it's not vexing to watch. There's just not a dominant team in the NFL. Now, New England is the best team, but are they dominant? No. I would say that this team ranks, I would say, in either their first or second Super Bowls where they were least talented, and Tom Brady was not the Tom Brady, the quarterback that we know now. They ran the ball, played great defense, had tremendous special teams. Now they just do it totally different. They're running the ball with Dion Lewis, trying to preserve Tom Brady because the offensive line is not great. Their wide receivers are all banged up. Gronk is their #1 guy. Who can take Gronk away? Because you're going to beat New England. That's what you have to do. Haven't seen anyone be able to do that. They should be the favorite. Why? Because of Belichick and because of Brady, and they're more consistent than any other team in the NFL.
I feel like when we talk about, at least here, when we could talk about inconsistent teams, we talked about the Steelers playing up and down to their competition. We talked about the Carolina Panthers being inconsistent. But you always say, Nick, yeah, but it doesn't matter because look where they are, 11 wins, 12 wins. Like, it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, this is where their record is. Now, what is the difference between that argument and what you have with the Patriots?
It might be that I hold them to a different standard.
Okay.
It might be that. It also, it's the Patriots are never the type of team I expect to play down to their competition. The question for me with the Pats is, and one of the reasons I like the Steelers, one of the reasons I like the Panthers, is this time of year in particular, you're not playing any bad teams. So I like to ask, if you're playing your best and the other team plays their best, whose best is best, so to speak? Because if you play a bad game in the playoffs, you're probably going to get beat anyway. And right now, what we have been saying about the Patriots is they need, because of their lack of weapons, they need Brady to be great. Now, they've been able to get by in December, but can we show America what Tom Brady's December has been? It's 5 games, not a small sample, almost a third of the season. Look at the drop-off from the rest of the year to December. Most notably, passer rating, completion percentage, touchdown interception ratio. Leave that up there for a moment. Completion percentage, he's 15th. Passer rating, he's 18th. Those 5 interceptions, we can take it down now. The 5 interceptions, only DeShone Kizer and Eli Manning have thrown more. So maybe it is, to answer your question, confirmation bias for me. Because, Cece, what was my concern about Brady at the beginning of the year?
That he couldn't play a full season at this age, he would basically fall apart.
That by the end of the year, whether I don't know if I quite said fall apart, but yeah.
Yeah, you were worse than that.
Okay, sure. His
head was going to fall off.
By the end of the year, that the weather and the wear and tear would get to him. Now, I don't know if that's what's gotten to him. I don't know if it's a more conservative game plan. I don't know if it's just bad luck. But he has been a different quarterback in December than he was the rest of the year. So maybe that's the other thing that's going into my analysis of it.
He has been good enough, all right? I think that your standard that you've put them to is probably correct. I don't know if it's the right thing to do because it's about winning football games. They got 2 wins to get to potentially their 6th Super Bowl championship at Gillette. Why wouldn't you have more faith in them? And you can't make a case for any other team. With the top 2 teams in the AFC having backup quarterbacks, who in the AFC do you think? As long as they got the Bills, the Dolphins, and the Jets, they're going to win 10 games.
You don't think you can make a case for Pittsburgh? You said you can't make a case for any other team in the AFC. You don't think you can make a case for Pittsburgh?
You can try to make a case for them, but if you look at the way New England has beaten them, it's going to be hard to – it's going to be – Vegas says different. Now, Nick Wright can say something else, but Vegas says different. They are rightfully – the best team and the favorite to win the Super Bowl. And the reason why, look at their head-to-head. And who do you have confidence in?
Why do you think Vegas? Why do you think most of the country seems to think that this Patriots team has a better shot of winning than the Steelers?
I think the reason to me the Patriots are the big favorites in Vegas is because the NFC's in a weird year right now where you can make a strong case for all 6 of those teams. So no one of those teams is going to differentiate itself. In the AFC, you feel like it's really only down to 2 teams, New England and Pittsburgh. And because of that game 3 weeks ago, that game, if it's played, it's in New England, and we don't know the health status of Antonio Brown. Like all those factors are coming into play here, which is why it makes sense that they are the money favorite in Vegas, because you can't pick one team in the NFC, and Pittsburgh would have to go to New England. And CC's point that Pittsburgh does not have a history of beating New England is a fair one. And again, maybe I'm biased because that game 3 weeks ago, I thought Pittsburgh was better than them. I thought Pittsburgh outplayed them. I know they lost the game, but we both came out of that game feeling similarly, that Pittsburgh had played the better game, that they could have won the game, that they should have won the game.
Yeah, but in the NFL, they don't give trophies out to the team that should have won. They give trophies out to the team that scores more points. So typically, New England scores more points than the other teams.
And they never beat themselves, ever. So frustrating.
Why is it frustrating, though?
Just so frustrating, man.
Why,
15 years, the same stuff. And by the way, I watched yesterday, every 50-50 call, Pat's way, the whole thing. It's just frustrating. It's just enough. No. It's enough for the Pats.
They definitely don't get every call, but
okay.
I
said 50-50. all the questionable ones.
Eagles and Cowboys. Philly didn't have much to play for on Sunday, having already clinched the top seed in the NFC, and that's pretty much how they looked. Losing 6-0. Nick Foles played just 1 quarter, finishing 4 for 11 for 39 yards and an interception, and a whole bunch of questions about his ability moving forward. Not the way he was hoping to end the season. Here he is after the game.
I know everyone's really positive in the locker room. It's been a tremendous season with these guys. I mean, we're 13-3. Unfortunately, we didn't put it together this week, and the last 2 weeks as an offense, we haven't done what we've wanted to, but we found a way to win against Oakland, and we're going to continue to improve and look at the film and be ready to go for the playoffs.
Well, that's optimism if I've ever heard optimism. Greg, let's start with you. How should the Eagles feel heading into the playoffs with that guy Nick Foles at the helm?
I mean, they should feel good. They obviously don't feel as good as they would if their guy, Pennsylvania, was at the helm, but everyone would love to have him quarterbacking at this point in the season. But the nature of the game, this is what makes you a great team, when you can go to your depth, when you can go to your bench, and you can still have success. When I look at the Eagles, I still think they're a contender, not as much as I thought. Obviously, with Carson Wentz at the helm, their offense looks drastically different. When I look at this team, I thought with Carson Wentz, they're a lock for the Super Bowl. Without Carson Wentz, I don't know if they make it out of the first round because of the way they've been playing, or they got the bye, the divisional round.
Their first playoff game.
Their first playoff game. Because of the way they've been sputtering on offense, they can't move the ball. They can't put the ball in the end zone. And when you look at all the weapons that they have, you're almost baffled at the fact that there would be such a major drop-off, but Nick Foles just hasn't been in sync with his receivers. Their offense looks completely different without Carson Wentz at the helm, and I think that's a credit to Carson's ability to really take on ownership of, this is my offense. This is what I do.
You mentioned not in sync with his receivers. Cece, when we talked Friday, we both thought Foles would play at least the first half, into the second half, and then you would see Sudfeld late in the game. Were you guys surprised? Because I was surprised that they took him out as early as they did. The way the game announcers who get to talk to the coaches and players beforehand, they seem to think that he might have only been scheduled to play one series, but the first series went so poorly they went him back out. They put him back out there. When it went as badly as it did, I was surprised they didn't give him more opportunity to get in sync with his receivers going into the playoffs.
I can't prove this, but I don't think Nick Foles likes playing in the cold. Now, that to me was the reason why I thought they pulled him, because he looked so bad. Now, if I'm a wide receiver, you guys can talk about analyzing it. I do not want a backup quarterback like Nick Foles in the playoffs because it marginalizes the offense. Doug Peterson, they're going to lie for 2 weeks. Oh, yeah, we're running the same offense. That's not the same offense that the Eagles were running earlier with Carson Wentz. Now, you can talk about quarterback talent. I'm talking about his ability to drive the ball down the field. They were not dinking and dunking when they had Carson Wentz. And to me, you talking about lack of confidence. Did you see that press conference? Now, that don't look like a guy getting ready to lead me to no major victory, getting ready to lead me to the Super Bowl. Like, to me, I take a lot from the press conferences. I call myself a body analysis. I analyze their outfits and their body language. And neither one of them look like championship caliber to me. So if I'm a Philadelphia fan, I'm concerned. And the reason why I'm more concerned than Nick Foles, than Case Keenum, the Vikings are playing indoors. I mean, Case has a small arm, but they got perfect conditions. The Vikings defense is better than the Eagles defense. You know, so those are things when you have a backup quarterback, you can't hide him. The weather's going to be cold, and you would have to prove to me that Nick Foles in these next 2 games that he enjoys playing in cold weather.
I just don't know what you do now. You don't have the luxury of time, per se, to get him up and running with this offense. You're not going to drastically change the offense now to fit Nick Foles, and Sudfeld is not your answer to anything. So where do they go from here right now to try to get themselves back in a position to dominate in the NFC?
Well, obviously, they don't change anything. I mean, you have to go with who you are, and who you are is what we're seeing. You talked about the cold. When I watch Nick Foles, you are going to have to play well in the playoffs. When it is cold, everyone wants to run the ball. Everyone wants to speed the tempo of the game, get the clock running, establish a running game. If your running game is non-existent, the burden falls on you. And I think every team is going to force him to throw the ball because he can't move outside of the pocket. He has to get in sync with his receivers, and he just hasn't shown that he can do that.
And just like we saw that Ezekiel Elliott made Dak Prescott so much better, man, oh man, it sure seems like Carson Wentz made the Eagles' running game better. These last 2 games, 18 for 70, 21 for 78. The last 2 weeks for Philly, not against teams known for their run defense in Oakland and Dallas. Defenses are doing exactly what you said. All right, Nick Foles beat us. Hey, and these wide receivers that we've been saying, they've got this great collection, no true number one, but a lot of really solid wide receivers. Now you're looking at it. You're like, okay, we have a full season to look at. Torrey Smith has had a terrible year, period, point blank. Nelson Aguilar's been okay. Ertz has been pretty good.
Nelson Aguilar coming off an awful season where people were looking at him as a bust. They moved him into the slot. Now, he has had a good year.
He's certainly, and certainly compared to last year.
He's one of the top slot receivers in the NFL this year.
Okay, all right. We might be slightly disagreeing on him overall, but I think you'll agree with the larger point,
right?
Which is the larger point right now. It's not as if
they're above average as a group. I've never said they were good nor great.
Okay, so
their tight end is their best receiver.
Right. Okay, so that's where I was.
They got
going.
A bunch of 2s and 3s.
Exactly right. So that's exactly where I was going. Is that if their tight end and their 3 wide receivers combined this year have 3 total 100-yard receiving games. It's been a collective effort with Carson Wentz.
Force multiplier.
Carson Wentz
makes everyone of all the 2s and 3s look like 1s.
And you don't know where he's going with the football. Like, he's been able to distribute it very well. That's going to be really hard for Nick Foles to do.
Well, it's because his ability to extend the plays and get outside the pocket and still be very accurate when he's outside the tackle box. When you look at Nick Foles, his parameter, his restriction is within that pocket.
Yeah.
He can't move outside of the pocket, and so you limit everything right there. You talk about expanding a playbook. Well, we can't move him outside of the pocket. That's not his strength. Right. His strength is being a pocket passer and having things develop in front of him, and his receivers creating separation, which in the code, the guys don't want to run. Hamstrings are a lot tighter. The ground is a little bit harder. You don't have the great footing as you would early in the season, and it's harder to create separation. They have to make plays for him, and it just hasn't happened. So this is why I don't think they make it out of the division round.
Backup quarterbacks, there's a reason why they're backups. Typically, it's their arm talent. They don't have the ability to be able to drive the ball to all parts of the field. Typically, they might be height challenged or athletically challenged. He is Nick Foles. He is athletically challenged. What else? Inconsistency. How many weeks in a row can a backup be consistent? That's the reason why they're backups. Why the surprise in Minnesota? Because Case got beyond that. He became more consistent. Even though he's height challenged, he's arm talent challenged, they moved the pocket around, his ability to get them the football. And I'm going to tell you guys, it's a hell of a different game playing inside in January than it is playing outside.
And I know we got to be quick here, but this is something we were talking about off the air that I just want to bring up. Yesterday was bitter cold everywhere in America except for South Florida, essentially, it seemed like. It almost looked like there was a different sport being played than the one we saw through September. I said guys looked miserable out there. Like some guys didn't look like they wanted to play. CC, you said if you don't want to play, you're going to get hurt. So you can't have that.
Don't put that on an NFL player.
Right, so you can't have, that's fair.
There's no one that wants to play football in 10 degrees.
Right.
All right? And if you're not, besides trying to protect yourself, because you can really get hurt. You have to make up your mind for 5 hours. I'm getting ready to do something. I hope I don't have to do too many times in my life.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the challenges of playing in the cold. People think that from a Southern team coming to the cold has to have a mental challenge that they have to, a mental barrier that they have to overcome. Mm-hmm. Look, cold is cold to anybody. So when you're
That's
out
what Brett Favre told me when we were playing Green Bay. I was like, Brett, how you do it? He said, I'm just as cold as you, bro.
The NFC playoff picture, here's how it shakes out. The Eagles had already wrapped up the 1 seed entering Week 17. The Vikings took care of business to grab the other bye. The Rams, Saints, Panthers, and Falcons round out the field. All 6 have between 10 and 13 wins. So, CC, does every team in the conference really have a legit shot to reach the Super Bowl?
Every team. I don't think the Falcons or the Panthers can win 3 games in a row. So I think they can win a game or 2, but no, I don't think either one of them can win. I don't think Atlanta's offense, they can score enough points, and I definitely don't think Cam can be consistent enough to go and win 3 games on the road. So, no, the other 4 teams, I do believe, have a legitimate chance. Now, when you have the number 1 and the number 2 seed, both of them have backup quarterbacks. To me, the Vikings are the overwhelming favorite, being that they can play at home in January and lead to Super Bowl 52 in Minneapolis. I think everything leads for the Vikings to be the favorite. Philadelphia losing the divisional round. Vikings play the championship game at TCF Bank Stadium. I think the Vikings and the other 3 teams have a chance to. I don't believe in the Panthers, and I don't believe in Atlanta because they'd all have to go and do it 3 on the road.
So let me talk. I think to answer the question.
And my graph says that Cam Newton can't do that.
Well, about the graph in a moment. But the question, this is amazing. But I think every team has a shot except for the number 1 seed, Philly. I think Atlanta has, of those other 5 teams, the smallest shot. But
wait, the Vikings, Rams, Saints, Panthers, and Falcons all have a better shot than the number 1 seed, the Philadelphia Eagles.
100%. Absolutely. Do I think a team led by Nick Foles, even at home, can win consecutive games against really good teams? Absolutely not. So now the Falcons are, of those other teams, the ones that I'm most, of the other 5, most questionable
Falcons
about.
beat the Rams. Falcons got to go to Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
You got a lot of confidence in them playing outside.
I have confidence that any team right now that qualifies for the postseason would be a favorite against a Nick Foles-led team, especially a Nick Foles-led team that all of a sudden the running game doesn't look as good as it did the first 10 weeks of the year, and there are questions about the team overall. And I think what you said, CC, is real, which is the level of confidence of the players. I think about the other guys in the locker room feeling whether or not they feel like, you know what, our Super Bowl moment was stolen from us the moment Carson Wentz went airborne, diving into the end zone. Think about the high of that game.
The players know that it changed. You can't lie to them.
And that game, they beat the Rams. It was the 2 theoretically best teams in the NFC, or aside from the Vikings. They win that game on the road, tough condition, and then all of a sudden their season's stolen from them. About the Panthers. That chart that you love so much, that's up, down, up, down, up, down with Cam. Now you can't use anymore because he's had back-to-back bad games, just down, down now. It is worth noting, prior to yesterday's game, Cam's team in those games was 6-1. So I say that to say this. The Panthers do not need Cam Newton to play 3 great games. Probably need him to play 2 really good games.
It's nice to come up with your conclusion because you're based on your quarterback not being inconsistent. That's a great recipe for the playoffs. You know something? Hey, this dynamic quarterback that wears a hat and a feather after the game, we don't even have to rely on the best athlete on the field. That's kind of a odd way to look at success in the playoffs.
It's not an odd way to look at success in the playoffs. It's just looking at history to figure out what could happen in the future.
You're saying as long as the team plays well. Did they play well yesterday?
They have a better supporting cast around their quarterback.
Correct.
So their victories aren't contingent on him being a superstar. But that's also a negative.
Well, but so let me. Of course, you'd rather have it all. You'd rather
know when you devise a game plan. You rather know what the guy is going to be halfway decent at that day, and that's the dilemma that the offensive staff have with Carolina week in and week out.
And I don't think the Panthers can win their round 1 game against the Saints, who I don't think they can win their round 1 game against the Saints without Cam playing well. But let's say they do win that game and Cam does play well, and if the Rams win their game, then it's the Panthers going to Philly. Can the Panthers beat Nick Foles without Cam playing well? Absolutely, I think they can. Could the Panthers theoretically beat Case Keenum in Minnesota without Cam playing well? Probably not. He'd probably have to play really well in an NFC Championship game on the road. Now, the other teams that we haven't talked much about, the Saints and the Rams. I think either one of those teams can go to the Super Bowl. I know they don't have a bye. I think both of those teams are very well-rounded. I think they run the ball, they throw the ball, they play good defense. I think either one of those teams absolutely can go to the Super Bowl.
And great special teams for the Rams. Like, let's not forget, they did lose their kicker, but their return game, their punter is one of the best in the business. So when we start looking at what are the difference between the 1 and the 6 seed, don't forget about the special teams.
Does it mean anything to you? The Rams, Saints, and Panthers all lost yesterday. The Rams we can throw out because they were resting everybody. Saints and Panthers, we've talked a lot about the Panthers. The Saints.
Yes.
That was an important game. It ended up being fine for them, but the Saints could have lost their home playoff game by losing yesterday if the Panthers had played better. Does that mean anything to you?
Of course it means something. It's momentum going in. Each one of these teams had a game plan to win the game. They weren't successful. They didn't play well. So the coaches have to try to adopt some type of philosophy to overcome. Typically going into the playoffs, you're coming in with a lot of momentum. So the Saints, they lucked out because of Carolina, and they got the home game. Carolina, they had a chance to have home field advantage, a chance to win your division. So that was not successful. And trust me, they're worried about Cam Newton. Even though you might not be worried, I can guarantee you that locker room is worried about which Cam is going to show up for the playoff game.
When you talk about the second season, and you said it was interesting because I didn't think momentum was a big deal at the end of the regular season into the postseason. It seems like it's a completely new set of rules. You have got new teams. It's a whole different atmosphere. If someone who's played in the postseason and the regular season, talk about the difference and what your approach is.
Okay, well, first of all, if you come in playing bad, what's your confidence level? What kind of game plan? When you're not playing good as a defensive coach, what can I call? What can I implement? What do we do well? We play zone, we play man. When you play well, the coaches have a better understanding of what's our sweet spot, what's our best defense, what's our best coverages, what are our 5 best plays to run. 3rd down and 5, what are we going to run? We get into the red zone, what are we going to run? So momentum has a huge bit to do with it because the momentum is based off of results. So the coaches have more confidence. The players have more confidence. The teams that go in with momentum, it typically begins to snowball. That's why it's called momentum. And in football and pro football, it's really hard to combat that momentum.
College football playoffs are upon us. Let's discuss. Let's prognosticate. Let's start with the Rose Bowl. Number 3, Georgia against number 2, Oklahoma. Or in other words, defense versus offense. Georgia, 3rd in the nation, holding opponents to 13 points per game. Oklahoma boasting the 4th best offense, averaging 45 points per game. But Baker Mayfield's been sick all week and barely made it to his scheduled media appearance. Here he is on Saturday.
Obviously, they would have liked to have had me here earlier, but, and I realized that players, teammates, and some of these coaches would have to answer questions on my behalf. I got sick of that, and I know they're tired of it too, because they know I'm out there at practice. And like I said, I'm not dying, but, I don't feel 100% right now. It's not about any sickness that I have. We're here to win a game, and that's what it needs to be about. My teammates don't need to answer questions on my behalf. I'm not dying. I'll be playing, and we're focused on our goal.
I don't know if you read, there was a lot of drama with the way he walked in. He was watching the press conference, and he came out of bed, and he got in an Uber, and he went the 2 miles down the road to the conference center, and he walked in, and he was like, I'm here. But it's good that he was, because there were a lot of questions surrounding Baker Mayfield. So let's talk about this Georgia defense. Do you think, CC, they can slow down Baker Mayfield, sick or otherwise, later today?
The Georgia defense has been great against everyone except Auburn. People forget that Auburn at that time was the best team in college football. Back-to-back weeks beat Georgia and Alabama. So, yes, this Georgia defense is very good. They got pushed around against Notre Dame. Oklahoma is very different than Notre Dame. Notre Dame runs the ball, can't throw the ball. Now, Oklahoma can do both. Watch the running backs out of the backfield in Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield's ability to find his 3rd and 4th receiver and his ability to ad-lib better than anyone in college football to give them extra time against the Georgia defense will be very physical. I don't think the question will be Baker Mayfield. I think he's going to be great in these games. Heisman Trophy winners typically have not fared well in the playoff system, but Baker Mayfield, I believe, leads Oklahoma against a Georgia team that will be challenged by a freshman quarterback, who I believe is the least talented of all the quarterbacks in the playoff series.
For Oklahoma to win, Baker Mayfield's going to have to be great because they're the only team in the playoff that doesn't have a great defense. Alabama, Clemson, who I know we're going to talk about in a little bit, and Georgia. That's 3 of the top 4 scoring defenses in college football, all holding opponents under 14 points per game. So those teams have gotten here with good offenses and punch-you-in-the-mouth defenses.
Oh, question for you 1 second. Don't you think some of those numbers are a little inflated because of the lack of good offenses they played against or the lack of good quarterbacks that are in the SEC?
Certainly, maybe not for Clemson, but yes, certainly for Georgia and Alabama, I do think. I agree with you. But also, we know that on Georgia, they got Roquan Smith, and Lorenzo Carter, 2 of the best linebackers in college football. We know Alabama's got pros on defense. So I do think, I think Georgia's defense is legit, even if the numbers are slightly inflated. It's a good point. There's one way to slow down Baker Mayfield. And note, I didn't say stop him because nobody's been able to stop him all year. But to slow him down, you have to find a way to get pressure on him. When his regular numbers, he leads college football in everything. passer rating, completion percentage. He's averaging nearly 12 yards per attempt. Not completion, attempt. Just every time he drops back to pass. That completion percentage drops down to 53% under pressure. His touchdown interception ratio, 8-2 under pressure. Now, those are better numbers than the average quarterback, but that's the only way to slow him down. And as you mentioned, CC, if you can keep him in the pocket. Now, that's asking Georgia to do something no one's been able to do in college football all year long. Georgia will be able to score some points on the Oklahoma defense. The question is, can they hold Baker Mayfield under 30, 35? Like, it's a hell of a test for them.
So if you're going to spend so much time protecting him, maybe this game comes down to the trenches and who is going to really jump out at that point.
If Georgia can get if Georgia can get a pass rush on Baker Mayfield and get him to the ground, they got a good shot.
And Georgia's got to run the ball. With their two running backs, Chubb and Sony Michel, you got to be able to run the ball to keep Oklahoma's offense off the field.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Chris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolf. So long, everybody.